Hello. Hey, welcome to the show. Captain John here. Hey. Welcome aboard SB-80, voted once again the ricketiest structure claimed by the Federation. I'm Captain John, your host, and every week on Retro Rangers, we like to choose an episode of Star Trek, and we love all of Star Trek. So we choose from the great variety that we have in front of us, and we like to recap it, review it, entertain you with it, get your opinions about it, get you telling us what you love about Star Trek. And when I say we, I don't mean me and the mouse in my pocket. His name is Franz. I mean my co-officer aboard this terribly rickety structure. Have you met Commander Joe Townsell?
Hello, Captain John, and hello, Franz. I'm pleased to meet you. I didn't know you were hanging out with us tonight.
Where is he? Where is he? Actually,
there's Franz.
And he's also good at this.
Oh, okay, yeah. He keeps your monitor clean and everything. You know, John, just to show that our SB-80 station isn't perfect.
No,
neither you and I are perfect. We're just dazzling and lovable. But
true.
Just in case anyone picked it up, and I'll save them the need to correct us. You refer to this show as Retro Rangers, almost Retro Trekkers.
Oh, did I say Retro Rangers?
It's okay. They're all great shows. But the thing I'm gonna own up to is I was watching our beautiful ad for Made to Order, and you know what? We'll need to pull that one until I correct a typo I put on the graphic I gave you.
No. Oh my gosh. You would almost think that we do this ourselves and we don't have a big bunch of producers behind us.
I know. I mean, you think it'd be a lot more polished with our incredible team, but
it almost seems like we're just two old Star Trek fans who just slap a show together. And that's actually, Joe does a ton of work, and it's going to show up in this show. So at least we have that. Who do we have so far in the audience? We've got our dear Ensign Rosario. I love how he's bragging.
I'm trying to get the logic behind that statement, Raphael.
The beats were so good, I decided not to watch the episode. I totally get that, because when Joe puts together the beats of the show, it is one of the highlights of the show, without it.
Thank you both very much.
But I do agree that that bragging about your lack of media awareness is that's odd. That's odd. Oh, shame on you. We also have Ensign Bach reporting for duty.
Oh.
Isn't there a T in that word, Norm? Whatever. This is the sort of where is it? This is the sort of SB-80 foolishness you can appreciate from these fools here in the chat. And of course, we love when people join us in the chat. Let's talk about this episode. My goodness, let's get right down to. All right. Let's talk about some nitty gritty. This one has a very interesting, what am I looking for? Pedigree. Mm-hmm. I don't know if anybody has noticed all the writers on this one.
Which is usually an indication of something not great.
Well, actually, there's a story. There's a very interesting story. So, Living Witness is the episode we're talking about tonight. It is from the series Voyager, of course. It is from the 4th season, and it is the 23rd. And now, anytime you get to the 23rd episode of a Star Trek season, Mr. Townsell, am I wrong here when I generalize that they're a little tired by the time they get to the 23rd episode?
Well, I would think so. I mean, as we discussed before, Captain, we get 10 episodes of a season now for a lot of new shows.
Yeah.
These guys we're rolling out 26 a year, every year, beginning in September, October. So, yeah, I mean, fatigue is bound to set in. Scott Bakula, as we mentioned before, he said, no, cut it down. So for him to cut down to 22 for the last two seasons of Enterprise. So yeah, some fatigue will set in, but then again, they could also sometimes get that second wind.
And that is very, very true in this case, because I want people to know that while certain characteristics are showing up, and I might be a little like, about that, I still think this is a very good episode, an especially good episode. And let me talk people through where this came from. Originally, Brian Fuller was becoming part of Star Trek at this point. The screen director, Brian Fuller, who is definitely an interesting person and had a lot to do with the establishment of Star Trek Discovery, even though he had nothing to do with the execution. But let me tell folks about this. There is a guy named Rob DeBoard, and he used to be the writing partner of Brian Fuller. And he worked on this idea. And he said, "Hey, Brian, what do you think about this idea?" And Brian said, "Wow, that's a pretty interesting idea. And I'm working with Brannon Braga and Joe Menosky. Why don't I take your idea to them?" So he did. And it turned out to be a very good idea. It was the story was credited to Brannon Braga because it did go really far from DeBoard's original idea. And then the teleplay was hammered out with Brian Fuller, Brannon Braga, and Joe Menosky. Here's the thing, though. Directed by Tim Russ. Now, what do you think of that, Joe? Let me go to you first. What do you think about Tim Russ, the actor who plays Tuvok, being the director of this episode?
Well, why not? He was very capable and talented in that regard, as well as playing his part. I mean, look at other directors that acted in Trek, that directed Trek. Nimoy and Jonathan Frakes. Shatner, not so much.
Really not so much. But LeVar Burton would show up.
Yeah.
He would actually work on Voyager as well. Oh my gosh, the gal who played Torres,
Roxanne Dawson. I got it right here, but I always mix her up with the other one, But yes, the guy who played B'Elanna Torres.
Yeah. She became a great director as well. So yes, a lot of good directors. And Tim Russ, I mean, we'll talk about it at the end of the episode, I'm sure. But I think he acquitted himself well. I'll just say that right at this point.
Yeah, now just to get this complete, Roxanne Dawson.
Yeah. Oh, and she's so beautiful. But I know that doesn't matter. She can be a good director even if she isn't beautiful. But my gosh, she's so beautiful.
Well, she is. They're all beautiful people in their own way, regardless. So it's totally appropriate, man.
Chris says, "I think directors who were good actors do a good job." I'm not just sucking up to you, John. Former actor. Well, no,
and director, and prove Chris's point.
Well, I've directed a few things, mostly for stage, but hey, we should get into the really juicy part of the show, the part that Raphael mentioned, the beats.
Here we go.
Here we go. Just doing a little fading of the audio. Where did I put the beats? Where did I put them? Oh, here they are.
Geez. Another Mirror Universe episode? Well, actually, no. Retro Trekkers, welcome to Revisionist History 101. This week's special guest from Voyager, the Doctor, also known as Living Witness. We begin our history lesson on the warship Voyager, staffed by a brutal, sadistic version of our lovable Delta Quadrant crew. Captain Janeway, with bondage gloves and slicked back hair, decides to interfere in an alien skirmish. And they don't hesitate to violate the Prime Directive, if that's even a thing in this strange alternate reality. So, as a result, Voyager comes to the aid of the evil Voskans in defeating their neighbors, the noble Kyrians. the Voskan ambassador requests Voyager's military aid against their enemies, the Kyrians. In exchange, they'll offer a handy little wormhole to get Voyager home. But you gotta love this no-nonsense crew. They go above and beyond the call of tyranny and commence to commit genocide. Not only that, Janeway orders the execution of Kyrian revolutionary hero Tedran. Okay, hold the phone. This is all a holographic simulation of events that happened 7 centuries earlier, displayed in a Kyrian museum long after the war is over. The Vascan visitors to the museum find this account rather biased, maybe inaccurate. I mean, why is everyone mispronouncing Chakotay's name? That alone is pretty sus, that this simulation is just full of crap. Well, despite this, the Kyrian historian Quarren explains that it is the best possible account, given the available records. Well, that's debatable. I mean, where are the Facebook fact-checkers when you really need them? The questionable historical account continues. During their travels, Voyager has captured and recruited Delta Quadrant species, Talaxian, Kazon, and Borg. Oh my! Voyager is poisoning the atmosphere of the Kyrians. Crank it up, orders Janeway. Meanwhile, below decks, the android doctor, the bully Harry, and the multi-tattooed Chakotay are busy interrogating a prisoner. Get out the agonizer. No, wait. Wrong episode. Wrong series. Inject him with that stuff that melts the eyeballs instead. That'll make him talk before we kill him anyway. Uh-oh. 4 aliens have boarded Voyager and are messing around in engineering. Janeway orders 7 of 9 to activate the Borg stormtroopers. Well, they stop the invaders easily, but 2 are still alive. Well, easy solution from Janeway. Just assimilate them. Does that mean our favorite Borg is now 7 of 11?
I can't believe I
Does she now sell big gulps and is now open 24/7?
I hope.
Meanwhile, Tedran and his aide are captured and brought to Voyager. Everyone's brought together for another intense negotiation. Surrender or die. Janeway ain't messing around. She kills Tedran and his aide, because that's the Starfleet way. Quarren finishes the history lesson, concluding that his people were conquered and still oppressed. Needless to say, there is much pushback by those being portrayed as villains. Later, the curator of misinformation steps into a recreation of Voyager's engine room. He manages to fire up a piece of original Voyager technology. Lurking inside is some kind of hologram. Just like releasing a genie from its bottle, the mysterious being inside emerges. Hey, it's the Doctor from Voyager. Or, more precisely, an indistinguishable backup copy of the grumpy digital doc. Is it live or is it Memorex? Quarren breaks the news to the doc that 7 centuries have passed. So, back to the simulation. Tensions are brewing. The impromptu war isn't going as smoothly as they had hoped. Neelix is being insufferable. Well, at least that part of the bogus history is accurate. Paris calls him a hedgehog, then insults Chakotay. He starts a rumble, which Janeway breaks up with a phaser blast to a valuable and probably hard to come by starship console.
That's so funny.
Time to step it up. And now we'll attack the civilian population. The Doctor continues his attempts to explain the correct history to Quarren. At first, the Doctor's claims that Voyager was unfairly depicted by the Kyrians are blown off. Worse, the backup Doc could be held accountable for war crimes when he presents his story to the Commission of Arbiters. Only slightly shaken, and never stirred, the Doctor states that a currently non-functional Starfleet medical tricorder could settle the issue of who actually killed Tedran. The Doctor is horrified at the wholly inaccurate historical account. He attempts to set the record straight. Quarren deactivates the Doctor, suddenly fearful of some uncomplimentary reality being revealed. But he soon has second thoughts and new doubts. He reactivates the digital dock to get to the truth, the whole truth, and, of course, nothing but the truth. So, according to the Doctor, here's the real deal. Janeway had agreed to provide the Voskans with medical supplies in exchange for dilithium crystals. The ambassador warned Janeway to complete the trade post-haste. War was looming. Tedrin and the Vicarians board Voyager to stop what they believe is a military alliance with their enemies. Tedrin turns out to be a real a-hole, killing 3 and taking hostages, including the comely 7 of 9. The ambassador takes an opportunity to kill Tedrin. Well, it seems like neither race is very honorable. Okay, enough. Stop simulation. The Doctor concludes his summation to the commissioners. Tedrin's band of thugs stole a data module carrying the backup copy of the Doctor. The rest is, well, history. The commission members are not convinced, but with the data on the dock's ancient tricorder, maybe he can at least prove that Tedrin was killed with a Vascan weapon and not a Starfleet phaser. Well, so what? Protests one commissioner. We're still oppressed. Nevertheless, the Doctor has the approval to proceed with the experimental data retrieval. So, the Doctor and Quarren bond a little. The Doc misses B'Elanna Torres and finally remembers his other crewmates as well. In reality, the Doctor has accepted his friends have been gone for over 700 years. But still, to him, he saw them only yesterday. Did his friends ever reach home? Quarren has wondered the same thing. You know, maybe they should just pop some corn and check out the Voyager finale Endgame. Uh-oh! A riot next door interrupts the reminiscing. An angry mob of Vaskans is intent on destroying what they now know to be a museum of false history. Soon, it is reduced to rubble. You know, just like the quarry where Fred Flintstone used to work. The Doctor wonders if he should just blow off, setting the record straight. Revealing the truth may do more harm than good. But Quarren objects. The Doctor is not responsible for the actions of the rioters. Also, Quarren stresses that both races on his planet need to hear the truth about the real course of events from Voyager. Otherwise, it might be another 700 years before the full truth is learned. With this, the Doctor is persuaded to resume his search for the tricorder, which still may hold proof of what really happened during the Big War 7 centuries prior. The truth shall set them free. History may be written by the victors initially, but truth will always be the final word of such extrapolation. Oh, what's this? Many years later, the real history lesson is being shown to representatives of both species. They all now live in peace, equality, mutual respect, and understanding. This due in large part to the initial efforts and courage of both the Doctor and Quarren. The museum's new curator explains that Quarren lived long enough to see the beginnings of a lasting unity of the two peoples. She also tells of what became of the backup Doctor. He served as the surgical chancellor for the Kyrians and Voskans for many years following. But eventually, the backup Doctor took on the role of Snowbird, got an RV, and departed for Earth. He was longing for home. Oh no. About a century after that, the Doctor found his way to the new Starfleet Academy of the 32nd century. There, he exists as a somehow older hologram. I don't know, maybe his program degraded, making him appear as a senior citizen? Anyway, at the Academy, he is tending to the scraped knees of the cadets. Hey, we already knew that Robert Picardo is part of the upcoming new series. It all fits. Somewhat. Is this wildly held theory correct? Or just more fake history to come?
Who knows?
Well, folks, we'll just have to wait and see. Stay tuned.
It just timed out perfectly for the end of that song. Okay!
Here we go.
Here we go! Let's get down and dirty. And this is where we put all of our opinions out there on this episode. And this, I gotta say, I'm gonna let myself go first. This, I did not expect to like this episode so much, and I had never seen it before. This was all Joe Townsel's proposal, and he sold it to me because he said it's the closest thing that Voyager had to a mirror episode, a mirror universe episode. And Joe, what else stands out for you with this episode?
Well, there's a lot to unpack here. I mean, first, I'm glad you enjoyed it. I'm glad it was new to you. I think that right at the very top of it, you don't get any better than this on Voyager, in my opinion. And I'll tell you why. Because if you can create something that has a message that's worthwhile, that still resonates 30 years later, even more so.
Yeah.
And you've got something good here. I mean, there's no sense making fun of that because there's a lot here that is so relevant now. In the beats, I made reference to misinformation and, of course, talking a little bit about the riots. I actually wrestled a little bit over that particular side. How am I going to do this?
Yeah, seriously.
So I kind of reached by bringing Fred and Barney into it, but that's okay. They're my beats, damn it.
Exactly. Beautifully done. I know you're not thinking. Beautifully done.
Thank you. No, I mean, except that the message is clear. It doesn't hit you over the head. It's common sense until it isn't. Until it's perverted and savage. And it reminds me also in terms of how it delivers his message in another fantastic Trek episode, the Drumhead from TNG.
Yeah.
Because especially the Picard speech in that. Maybe we'll tackle that one sometime in the future.
We should.
But yeah, I mean, it's just really well handled, and don't want to get too much into total conjecture, but I am far from alone in the theory that the Robert Picardo character we're going to see in Starfleet Academy is this character. It makes total sense.
I love that idea. Now, let me just throw this at you because this is just kind of occurring to me. I don't know if this is the segment for it, but now we do know that the Voyager gets back to the Alpha Quadrant, and I believe gets back to Earth eventually.
Well, pretty much as soon as we came out of the wormhole or whatever it was, the data portal or whatever they called it in the last episode, they were there immediately.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. So that was a very important part of sort of solving their problem and getting them home.
Sure.
So now what you would have is what happened to the original EMH? What happened to the original doctor who was on Voyager? He's actually at the seat of the Federation now at the end of the Voyager series. So he exists, and then his backup is out there as well. So you've got kind of a Tom Riker situation.
Exactly. I mean, in the history that was unfolding before Janeways changed it. I mean, he was living a life of service. He had found a wife, but again, all that was probably negated when they changed history to come home so many years earlier than that. But I would imagine that he's a totally unique being in the sense that he's sentient. Because remember, I can't remember the episode. Guys, help us out if you know it off the top of your head. But there were several holographic beings that looked like Dr. Zimmerman being used within Starfleet and the Federation.
But that's right.
Yeah.
Right. That's absolutely true, isn't it? Because every ship had the EMH. It was like a spare tire.
We saw the Enterprise-E's EMH in First Contact.
That's right. Oh gosh, I forgot all about that. Interesting. So there could be more than one. I do love the Doctor. He is my absolute favorite character on Voyager. I say that even though we've got MVP coming up as one of our segments, but I did want to tackle this because Mike Sauter, my very good friend, he's been a frequent guest on Joe's and my shows, including Retro Rangers. Mike is a very smart guy, but we're going to have to be gentle here because Star Trek diehards might have an emotional reaction to this. And Mike says a hologram is repeatedly described as a man and living, as in the title. Huh? Okay, correct me if I'm wrong, anyone. But a big part of Voyager is how the Doctor went from basically being the spare tire or a road flare. I mean, he was never, ever supposed to be left on as long as they leave him on, which is basically 7 years. And in all of that time, he actually evolves. And they refer to him as a photonic being, because not only is he a being that has a personality and a history and a memory, and he's made out of light, but they, over the course of the show, meet other photonic beings. And he's frequently the ambassador. He's frequently the, oh, hey, I'm made of light too. It's wild, but it is one of the things they introduced in Voyager that I really love. Have I missed anything there, or is there anything else anyone can say?
Well, well, I mean, as far as it being living, as Mike puts it in quotes, I understand that, but really for me, this was all, the precedent was set as far back as TNG season 2 in Measure of a Man. If it applies to data, it's got to apply to holographic beings as well, because they define sentience as best they could, and it all applies to the Doctor.
Right. And the historian, my gosh, what's his name? You said Warren. He actually says, he's got a line where he says, we have artificial humans, we have androids, we have photonic beings in this time. And he says this as he's basically saying to the Doctor, and we do make them like be accountable for their crimes. So you're going to jail, biatch. If you don't clean this up, if you don't somehow account for all of this evil.
But there was an evolution of the Quarren character too, slightly, because moments before that, the Doctor's asking, well, what are you going to do with it? You can put him on display in your museum, and well, maybe, who knows? So what is he, a slave, or is he a war criminal, or both? I don't know.
Interesting. Yeah, I wonder if Quarren says that in the context of if we put you in jail, we'll actually just put you over there in up against that wall. Which would be very much like that Data episode where Saul Rubinek. I can never remember anything about that episode except Saul Rubinek's really, really evil in it.
You're referring to the most toys. Where
thank you, the most toys, exactly.
They attempt to kidnap him as a part of his collection.
So Sauter says, but then isn't every time they shut the Doctor down without his consent a crime? The Doctor thinks so.
Sure, it bugs him.
Absolutely.
He says, either leave me off or leave me on, but this being whisked out of existence at your whims, that's not cool.
Didn't they approach it at some point on Voyager that he does need to have like periods of rest? Like if he's on too long, it does kind of work against him. It does degrade him a little bit. Maybe I'm just remembering that wrong.
I can't dispel it or confirm it. It does sound similar to when what Odo had to regenerate. He had to go to his bucket every 18 hours. Doesn't mean they both don't have some kind of cycle, but I guess if the Doctor's really cranky as far as the cycle, they can say, oh, is it that time of the week or whatever?
I mean, and he does get cranky. He actually does. But that's Robert Picardo, I think, is I'm already jumping ahead. Let's talk more down and dirty. Were there any opinions or any thoughts that anybody else had? Joe, anything off the top of your head that you wanted to point out about the plot, the execution, anything like that?
Well, as you pointed out, John, I mean, it's as close as Voyager ever got to a mirror universe as it ever would get, which is great because, they haven't overused it yet. They would later, of course. Right. TNG was the same. They had variations of that theme. most notably Parallels from season 7 of TNG.
Right. Right.
But yeah, I mean, it's a good Trek high concept. It's executed well. Robert Picardo shines in it, obviously.
He does.
And it set up stuff which we may see paid off here sometime when Starfleet Academy rolls around. I would be very surprised if that character is something else.
It would make me so happy if that's where the Doctor comes from. Though I had a thought, because you and I, when we were talking about this, prepping for this episode, you bring up the very good question of Robert Picardo is, I believe, in his 70s now.
Oh yeah, well, you saw him there at the end. He don't look the same.
No, he doesn't. And one of the things I was thinking, it kind of goes along with the version of the Doctor that married and had a wife.
Mm-hmm.
If his wife ages, maybe he would write into his own program that he ages too.
Right.
But that's just the Star Trek writer, fanboy in my head.
Well, I mean, that's an interesting thought, but if you think about it, he's going to age slowly over the course of 700 years when his wife would die like within 40 or 50.
Well, see, the way I would do it, the way I would write it would be, it bothers her that he never gets older. So he does get older, but after she passes away, he doesn't make himself younger. It's the equivalent.
Possible, and he's a quirky guy. I mean, he could decide to do things for any number of reasons.
That's true.
But then again, you have to remember that I hope that the Doctor in reality found somebody and married her. But the wife we're referring to, of course, was in a history that ceased to exist.
Oh, right. Yeah. Well, maybe. I mean, hey, he's a charming guy. Not really. Mike Sauter says, technically, every single thing we saw in this episode was mediated. That is true. And that's a very interesting thing about this episode, because this episode is actually like that joke holodeck cartoon they made where every scene you're seeing is a hologram that someone else is watching, and it just keeps going. Freeze computer. It just keeps going. Computer, freeze program, over and over. Because this one just keeps jumping ahead and jumping ahead, because what we're seeing is someone watching the past.
Right.
So that's interesting and clever. Continuing with what Mike says, we don't know if anything was accurate. Just as the Kyrian curator has the evil Voyager wrong, the later curator could be wrong too. Damn it, Sauter, you're right.
Well, Mike, the only thing with that is that maybe much of it was, but we know just by watching from the total outside, that at least the portions that the Doctor recreated were accurate. So if they were watching that in the far, far future, at least at least his recreation was on point.
That's true. Damn it, Chris, I can't put that up on the screen. Here, I'll go with one of Chris's earlier. Chris works blue, and that's fine for the chat. But he reminds us that C-3PO would power down. Because he'd get really bitchy if he stayed awake. I think it's probably time for us to jump. Let's talk about your favorite people, places, things in this episode, and what an absolute feast. What a banquet. There are so many things to love about this episode. I'm going to let you go first this time, Commander. What is your MVP for this episode, Living Witness?
Well, Captain, I hope you have a plan B, because I'm sure that our first choice is the same. But come on, I've got to go with the Doctor. I mean, he is the episode. Beginning to end, up and down. It's all about him and the being he is, and how he's able to basically be the forefront of the everlasting peace between these two people. So, and of course, Robert Picardo was brilliant. So having said that, I definitely have to choose the Doctor. And I expect, John, that you might have as I call it, plan B that's equally formidable. So
It's a tough one for me because I want to go big picture, and I also want to go small picture. I think I can do it if I go big picture. And that is, I'll say my MVP, and this is kind of cheating, is Warship Voyager.
Wow, okay.
Because I got to tell you, I would watch that damn show. When I was watching Voyager, I fell off around like season 3, and then I would watch 1 or 2 here and there, you know. But it was not a series that made me happy. It was not a series that I followed their moves and went, oh yeah, that's good. Like, I never did that. Almost never. Yeah, pretty much never with Voyager. Did I ever go, oh, they did something really good here? I loved almost everything about Warship Voyager. And this is my, if I were to go small picture, I would say my MVP was Kate Mulgrew. I wouldn't even say Captain Janeway.
Yeah.
Because Kate Mulgrew is filled with infinite performances, infinite choices and character choices and facets of the character. She is absolutely one of my favorite actors. The stuff that she's done outside of Voyager is incredible. The woman is just endless in her abilities, which is so funny because we make so much fun of Shatner for being a wildly not great actor. People will talk all the time about how Avery Brooks is just such a bad communicator and not a really wonderful actor. I feel the opposite way with Kate Mulgrew. Her Captain Janeway wasn't just simply like, twirling an evil mustache and giggling. And I mean, as great as Bakula was in, is it called Mirror Darkly?
In Mirror Darkly, yes.
In Enterprise, and he is great. He is really great. One of the things that he does is he shows his character, his Archer, his evil mirror version of Archer is evil because he is so weak. He's such a weak man. He has such a weak character, and that makes him evil. Not at all what Janeway does. Janeway is so, and I wonder who came up with the black leather gloves that they all wear, but she, not twirling the mustache, but, definitely showing me, as you referred to them, the dominatrix gloves. And there was something so butch and just so like S&M about her approach. It was incredible. I could watch it over and over because she never made an easy choice. She made all of these sort of deep, out of left field choices for how her character worked, which also sounds enough like Janeway. Like she wasn't evil Janeway. She was Janeway if she was evil. If there's any distinction there. So that would be my MVP. What Stoddard, what are you saying here? MVP was the prosthetic designer who had designed yet another way of funny nose forehead equals alien species. Oh my God, I'm so glad you brought that up, Mike. I hated these facial prosthetics that they had for the Kyrians because they never looked right. Sometimes they looked like, little tiny horn, things. But on at least one character, it just looked like, it just looked like a butthole.
Well, I took a little bit outside the butthole and said, it just looks like a couple of pimples that need to be popped. Little things protruding from it. And they go, No, the other aliens were definitely better.
I know. The other aliens were like, oh, that's a version of the Cardassians I could have gotten down with. I mean, they were... Yeah, that makeup I did not like at all. So that's an opposite of an MVP for me. That's okay. That brings us, of course, to my second favorite part of the show. My first favorite part of the show, of course, is the beats, but I do love. Picardo Townsville, the man who finds those sneaky little pieces of information that tried to get past you, and he shows them for everybody, and he puts them in the agonizer, and they have a good time. I'm sorry, the booth. It puts them in the booth.
Yeah, one of those things.
One of those things.
Well, first, John, thank you for your kind words about both the beats and the tidbits. I thoroughly enjoy putting them together, so I'm glad everyone's enjoying those as well. And
So-
hey, I got a few as always. I mean, one thing
up?
that's talking about this episode is that, just a couple weeks ago we did had to look at a much less quality episode. These are the Voyages from Enterprise. Well, one thing this has in common with that, as well as a couple other episodes from this series, is that we never actually see any of the regular characters live. I mean, obviously, Voyager crew has been dead and gone for many centuries, and this isn't even really the Doctor; it's the backup. So, no regular character shown. That in Voyager, there was two others I could think of. There was Demon, which they went to the Demon class planet, which resulted in a total duplication of ship and crew, which later was destined to just degrade and dissolve.
Right.
So in that episode, we only saw the regular crew at the very end for a minute.
Right.
So it's just unique in that regard because, and going back to your point about the performances, I mean, Janeway and others. Of course, this is a fictional alternate reality entirely, and an accurate one.
Right.
But it does stand out from the others, like the Mirror Universe and so forth, because they put off the persona that their circumstances are the result of circumstance, not of psychological differences.
Right.
So in other words, would these people have been the same under whatever happened to bring this about? Versus, I mean, in the Mirror Universe, you have evil Kirk, evil Spock, that type of thing.
Right.
So, I mean, I do find the parallels. There's another one, very intriguing. So there's one. What else do I have here? This was the only episode directed by Tim Russ, which was unfortunate. I think he could have done more.
That's actually where I wanted to go, was the Tim Russ story about this. Yeah. He was the third person on this show to get to direct. Robert Duncan McNeil had already directed. Robert Picardo had already directed. And he had to wait 3 years to direct. Right. So he spent a lot of time getting ready and thinking, when I direct, I'm going to do this, and I'm going to have this kind of shot, and I'm going to do this thing, and I'm going to have this kind of relationship. And all of those things, I think, really benefited from him planning that out. I mean, that's one of those things about directing that a lot of people don't understand. It's all planning. That's why storyboarding is such a big deal. That's why going through the script and going through those lines and figuring out every little thing you don't want to do and you do want to do. I mean, it's all planning. I have met people in theater that have been planning that play for at least a year. And you don't just pick it up really fast, although some people do, because, our friend Eric Kramer has worked with Jonathan Frakes, and he says he's one of the fastest directors he's ever worked with.
Yeah, Two Takes Frakes, I've heard, is his nickname.
Two Takes Frakes. And they say the same thing about Clint Eastwood. Clint Eastwood never says action, and he never says cut. He lets the actors decide when's the right time to start the scene. So a lot of this, an actor coming in, I think that's why I think Kate Mulgrew is the MVP, because Tim Russ gave her stuff to do and made room for her to make her choices in a beautiful acting ensemble kind of a way. And everyone was an ensemble in this episode. Yeah. I loved Neelix on the bridge.
The hedgehog?
Am I saying those words? I love him as a warmongering little
toady.
I could have totally done with that. That would have been great for me. Seriously, if there had ever been a Warship Voyager series, that would be my favorite series.
I definitely think it'll be very entertaining and fun. Had Enterprise not been canceled after season 4, we would have had an annual Mirror Universe episode like they did on Deep Space Nine. Too bad it never got to come to fruition. B'Elanna does not appear in this episode.
Right.
And that's because she was recovering from her pregnancy. So I thought it was kind of a charming touch that they referred to, at least, as far as her doctor's admiration for her. Made me wonder, so were they going to develop a little crush on her, but then went with Jerry Ryan instead? Or maybe it was just for this episode.
I wonder. I mean, look, as us being a couple of old fellas can tell you, when we work with younger women, especially, you just, it's not a crush, but it's just, you have such sweet feelings for the women you work with.
What did the Klingon say in Star Trek 6? Sincere admiration, Cook.
Here's a tidbit that Mike Sauter shares. The actor who played the curator also played the priest in Seinfeld when Elaine found out that Putty was religious. Oh, yeah. I'm religious. Very religious. Yeah.
It's okay. You're the one going to hell.
So, any other tidbits, Mr. Townsell?
I think that hits the highlights. I mean, it is the only episode that establishes that there was a backup module for the Doctor, the first and only.
I never knew. Yeah, I never knew. It does make sense that there were. I mean, I have a backup for everything we ever do.
I mean, it does make me wonder, because it wasn't even with Picard season 1, when they had like the rebellious synthetics. Even then, it wasn't totally answered for me, because there were a lot of questions as far as the status, the sentience of the Zimmerman holograms. Because there was another episode of Voyager where, forgive me, I don't place it easily, but we got to see a bunch of those holograms mining for dilithium. They were slaves.
Oh, I forgot about that one.
Yeah. So what exactly is that? Maybe that's yet to come. Maybe we'll see some resolution of that in Starfleet Academy.
The one last tidbit I want to throw forward is yet another Tim Russ, Kate Mulgrew tidbit. I feel like they made the decision that in this fictional version of the Voyager that Tuvok and Janeway were getting it on.
Oh yeah, that you picked that up. Let me see if I can do that look.
Yes, exactly. Well, I mean, technically, you'd have to like do it like this, because he did it in this wild tilt-up shot. But it had a lot of space balls to it. It had a lot of like, oh yeah.
Well, they have a
big mama.
I mean, they do have a deep friendship in reality. I mean, as we saw in Endgame, I mean, he was having this little Vulcan virus, and she became his caretaker basically. Fortunately, that was a murder when they changed history, but I mean, and we knew at the beginning of the series that they were close.
That's right. Yeah. I mean, that is their backstory, that they were like, they were like that. So yeah, I totally dug that. Hey, do you think we're done here with Living Witness?
I think we are for now. I mean, it may be an episode we refer back to when we look at similar ones, but it's a lot of people regard season 4. I'm one of them, of Voyager as its best, and this is one of the best of season 4. I mean, it's right up there. So
absolutely, and really a highlight for Voyager as well. It helps to have seen a few episodes of Voyager so that you can see the differences, but those differences are stark and really entertaining.
But John, you always surprise me, sir, because if I understood you correctly, it's like you bailed on Voyager just before 7 of 9 came on. You stuck it up your chest, but then left.
That is exactly true. And when they introduced 7 of 9, I was like, no, I can get porn anywhere.
No, see, but they surprised you, didn't they? She turned out to be a very well-rounded character.
I really did. No, when we were watching Picard together, you and I, that was I can't believe I love 7 of 9. I can't believe it. I can't believe I love Jerry Ryan. I love them. I love them both. That was a great thing to learn and to run across.
When you say you love them both, what are you referring to exactly, John? There's
Mike
your Tuvok
Sauter,
look.
Mike Sauter says, in true Vulcan tradition, Tim Russ released several albums. I have his debut from 2000. He is a musician. He is a recording artist.
Well,
And
and he has he has a previous Trek history, of course. He was different characters, obviously, but he was in Star Trek Generations on the bridge of the Enterprise B.
Oh, yeah.
And he guest starred in TNG as yet another character in the, I forget the name of the episode, but it was the Die Hard episode where Picard's trying to get off where the thing gets him.
Oh, yeah. Oh, the one where he goes back to get his saddle and they're doing like the clean sweep. Oh, yeah. Oh,
and let's not forget his classic role in Spaceballs where they're combing the desert. And he's using a pick and says, "We ain't found shit."
Chris says,
bravo, Tara.
Chris says the line in Galaxy Quest, quote, 6 paragraphs about my boobs, end quote, actually happened to Jerry Ryan.
Oh, no doubt.
I do believe that. And we did mention the name Brannon Braga earlier, but I don't know if it was him who did it, but apparently, yeah, that was there were focus groups dedicated to her boobs. Folks, I hope you are ready to join us next week for one of the greatest episodes of any television show that has ever been made. Joe and I got in touch with our friend Eric Kramer. We said, do you want to be on this one? We're doing City on the Edge of Forever. He said, yes, I am 100% there. Joe, what can we tell people about March 18th?
Well, what we can tell you is that other than being my birthday.
It's Joe's birthday!
Yay! And what better way to celebrate than looking at arguably one of the best in the entire franchise, most likely judged to be the best of the original series. It's, as I described, hopefully accurately, a timeless tale of love, duty, and tragedy. It's got all of it. And it's heartbreaking. Still is.
I also love your subtitle for this one, Creme de la Classics.
Oh, thank you, sir. I that came as an inspiration. At first, there wasn't going to be a subtitle, but wait a minute. I like that. I'm going to put that up there.
That is perfect. Perfectly describes it. So that would be next Tuesday, a week from tonight. Join us at 7 p.m. and 10 p.m. If you're on the East Coast. And Sauter says, I'll wear my beanie over my ears.
Well, you could just kept this haircut, Mike.
Now, coming up this Sunday is our fourth, right? Fourth?
It is the fourth one, yes.
Fourth episode of Joe's show, Joe Townsend's Dread Time Stories. Another day, another horror.
Ooh.
It's from his collection Anticipation. And Joe, sell that show. Sell that show to the people.
Do I need to have anything other than the graphic to sell it? Okay, what can I add to the graphic? Hey, all I can say is if you've ever asked somebody or were asked, how was your day, dear? Just another day. Not this one. This is a very atypical day at the office, and you'll see why.
Coming up this Sunday, that's March 15th. That show starts at 5 p.m. if you're on the West Coast, 8 p.m. if you're on the East Coast. And coming up this Thursday on Mr. Weber's Webo Mystery, my solo project, we're going to listen to The Saint, played by Vincent Price. He was one of the most popular actors to ever work in radio. Vincent did so much work in radio, and when you hear his voice, you'll be like, oh yeah, it makes total sense that his voice work was so famous, not just in the song Thriller, but in old time radio as well. So yeah, join me as we listen to Vincent Price as The Saint. That is coming up Thursday, March 13th, 7 p.m. on the West Coast and 10 p.m. on the Beast Coast. And that, sir, I think does it. I think we've covered everything. Anybody else want to say anything?
While they're collecting their thoughts, if any, I will just remind folks that, yes, Retro Rangers is on hiatus for a bit, a couple months, give or take. But in the meantime, we're going to be giving you great programming every Sunday at 5 and 8. Just check it out as we go from one to the next. There's good stuff coming.
We've got a lot of stuff that we can present to you that, really we've wanted to do other kinds of shows. We're going to do that on Sunday. I always like to refer to it as our wonderful world of Disney from the Weber Internet thingy. You never know what you're going to get that week, but it's going to be from the house of the Internet thingy.
The wonderful world of Weber.
Oh, if only. If only I had the balls to call it that. That will do it for this week. Join us next Thursday. Please excuse me. Join us next Tuesday for Retro Trekkers as we do City on the Edge of Forever. I'm just going to slap that up there really quick. And that's exciting. Okay. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you, Captain John. It was a great time as always. Thank you, everybody, for tuning in and commenting along with us.
Thanks, chat. You were fantastic as always. And LLAP, IDIC, baby.
Retro Trekkers, Capt'n John and Cmdr. Retro Trekkers, we love our story tricks. Retro Trekkers, the nerd muscles get to flex. Retro Trekkers, get down with the retro. Retro Trekkers, let's get done. Retro Trekkers, coming back with the recap. Retro Trekkers, reviewing has some fun. Recap, review, retro, recap, review, Trekkers, recap, review, retro, recap, review, Trekkers. Recap, review, retro, recap.